sin, and she told us what sin is. She told us how sin is a condition of our heart. She told us how sin is a disease, and it's fatal, and there's no cure for this disease. She talked about how Romans 6:23 says, for the wages of sin is death. This sin is the reason why there's brokenness in this world. This sin is the reason why there's pain, why there's death, why there's divorce. Sin's the reason why we feel alone, why we feel like no one in the world cares about us. This sin's the reason for all of this. It's the reason why we feel like there's no more goodness left in the world. This sin keeps us separated from God. It keeps us from having a relationship with Him, and He's good. Because of sin, we can't have that relationship with Him. It doesn't matter how hard we try on our own. It's like if me and Jalen went outside to that basketball goal out there, and the rim was back on it, and it was up to 10 feet, and I tried to dunk on it. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm 5'10", I've never dunked in my life. I can barely touch the rim on a good day. And if by some crazy boost of adrenaline, I get my hand above the rim one time, he's 8 inches taller than me, and he's just going to block it. It's just not going to happen. The same way in our life, it doesn't matter how good we think we are, how well we behave, no matter how much better we think we are than someone else, we're never going to be able to have a relationship with God on our own. And that's because of this sin. That's because of this disease that's in our heart that keeps us separated from Him. So that's where we get to the cross. And y'all have all seen the cross. The cross is a symbol that's just, you see it all the time with Christianity. It's the front of every church. It's on the Bible. But what does the cross represent? Because the cross isn't pretty. The cross represents death. The cross represents death in the most painful and excruciating way possible. See, death by crucifixion, which is death on the cross, was created by the Romans. And the Romans were masters at torture. They were masters of murder. They had it down to a science of killing people in the most excruciating way possible. See, the way crucifixion would start is they take you and they do this thing called scourging. So they take you out and they wrap your hands like this and they tie you to a pole. They take your shirt off so your back's exposed. And they take this whip. This whip's called the cat of nine tails. It's not a normal whip. It's called this because the end of it is leather cords split into 9 different cords. Each one of these cords is intertwined with broken glass and shards of bone and these metal balls and these metal rods. And they take this whip and they hit you on the back with it. They'd rip it off. Because of all these shards in it, when they hit you on the back, it'd stick in your back. And they'd pull it off and they'd rip skin with it. They'd hit you again and it'd rip your skin off. The Romans were masters at this. They knew that if they hit you 40 times, you died. So they whipped you 38, 39 times. Each time ripping off more and more flesh off your back. Excruciating pain, right to the point of death, but you didn't die. And see, in Jesus' case, they took him, after they'd done this to his back, and they took these vines that had thorns on them. They wove them together and they made a crown. Took these crown with these thorns and they pushed it onto his head. The thorns dug into his skull and into the back of his scalp. And the blood ran down his face. And you couldn't take it off. If you tried to take it off, the thorns dug into your head, wouldn't let you take it off. After this, they'd have you put the cross and you put it over your shoulder. You'd have to walk it a couple miles on your back, and these things were heavy. You'd walk it out of the city because crucifixion was too gruesome and too disturbing to do inside the city where there's people living. So you'd go up to this hill, and they called this hill Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. You'd take your cross all the way up on your back. They'd lay it down. And you'd lay down on this cross, and they'd take these nails this long, sometimes longer, sometimes wider than this. They'd take it and they'd put one there. They'd put one there. You'd cross your feet, and they'd put one in between your feet. They'd nail it in, and as it went in, it would break your wrist bones. They'd put it in, break your bones. Put it in your feet. They'd put it right there, and it would break your feet, the bones in your feet as they put it in. They'd take this, and you'd be nailed to this cross, experiencing pain like you could never even imagine, unlike anything you could even think of. They'd lift this cross up, and they'd drop it into a hole. And as it fell into the hole, the momentum of it dropping down to this hole, you would fall a little bit. It would dislocate your shoulders and your elbows. You'd be hanging down on this cross. You wouldn't be able to pull yourself with your hands. You're laying down, and your ribs are pushing against your lungs, and you can't breathe. See, the way the cross kills you, it didn't kill you by just the pain, which is more than anything you could ever imagine. The cross killed you by suffocation. When your body's hanging like that, you can't draw breath. So you have to push up, straighten your body up to breathe. But you can't use your arms, and there's a nail in the bones in your feet, and you're putting all your weight on that nail. You push up, and you draw a breath, and then you fall back down until you need a breath again. And you push up, putting all the weight on this nail. The entire time, you remember your back is scourged because of the whip. And the cross, it wasn't smooth like this one, no. It was basically just straight off a tree. It had splinters. It was rough. Your back, that's barely even human flesh anymore, was rubbing up against this cross. Each time you had to draw a breath, more pain than you can imagine. And this wasn't short, it wasn't 1 or 2 hours. No, you'd be here for hours and hours, sometimes days. And so Jesus was on this cross, and he was up on this cross for 9 hours before he died. And he died on this cross, and he died a death he didn't deserve. You see, Jesus was perfect. Jesus never sinned. We've talked about that all the time. He was human just like us, but he was also part God. Because he was part God, he wasn't born with that sin in his heart like all of us were born. He didn't have that condition, that disease. But he was human, so he suffered like we do. He felt loss, he felt pain like we do. He was tempted with sin, just like we are every day. But see, he didn't sin, he was perfect. Like I said, Romans 6:23 says the wages of sin is death. But he never sinned. He didn't deserve that death. I deserve that death. We all deserve that death because we sin. We have that sin in our heart. But if the story ends right there with us on the cross, there's no happy ending. We don't get to have a relationship with God. We're separate from him. So God said, I'm going to find a way for you to live with me. And this way was Jesus. Jesus was the only answer. God could have said, I'm just going to erase all your sin. I'm going to make it go away. But that's not just. See, God is so good, more good than we can even imagine. But he's fair. He couldn't just let it go away because he said there had to be a debt paid. There had to be a punishment. So that's where Jesus comes in. And Jesus came down and was a human, lived a perfect life, and never sinned. And then Romans 5:8 says that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Perfect life. This is the Jesus we've been talking about all semester. The Jesus that did miraculous things that we can't even wrap our minds around. He took a couple loaves of bread and a few fish, and he fed thousands and thousands of people. He gave sight to people who were blind. He gave people the ability to walk who had never had that before. He was perfect. Matthew 27:40 and 42 says that while he was on the cross, the people who put him up there mocked him. They said, you saved others, save yourself. They said, come down off that cross and we'll believe. But he didn't come down because someone had to die for the sins that we committed. Someone had to sacrifice their life so that we could have a relationship with God. Romans 6:23 says the wages of sin is death, but it doesn't end there. It says the free gift of God is eternal life with him. It's a free gift. Because Christ died on that cross, we get to have a relationship with him. And nothing can take that away. That's the greatest act of love ever in history. Nothing can top that. Whenever you feel alone, whenever you feel broken, whenever you feel like no one in the world cares about you, know that Christ went up on the cross and he died for you so that you can have a relationship with him. And nothing can change that. You don't have to do anything to earn that. It's free. You don't have to make sacrifices. You don't have to change the way you live. All you have to do is accept that love. Accept that sacrifice that he's given you. That's why it's the greatest love story ever. That's why we can't even fathom how incredible that is in our lives. To be loved that much and that incredibly. And the cool thing is, this story ended with death, and it ended with Jesus' death on the cross. But the story doesn't end there. There's more to the story. And I just need y'all to know that y'all are so loved by this Jesus who died on the cross even though he didn't have to. He died the death that I deserved, that you deserved. And he did it for you. It didn't matter if he had to die for all of us or if he had to die for one person. He was going to the cross either way. He died for you, specifically. That's incredible. That's true love farther than anything we could ever imagine in our human brains. So I just want y'all to know that y'all are loved. And I'm going to pray us out, and then we're going to have some time in here to play music. And if you have questions about that, we'd love for y'all to ask them. But if you don't have questions, you don't want to sit here and think about it, y'all can walk out to the lobby and we'll be out there and we can talk and hang out. But I just want y'all to think about the questions, like, what does it mean to be loved that much? That God would sacrifice his only son who he loved to die for the sins we have and we had to pay. I just want you all to also think about what's keeping you from saying yes to that. We'd love to talk to y'all about that. What's keeping you from saying yes to the greatest act of love ever? So I'm going to pray for us and then we'll play some music.